Hello everyone, welcome back to Questioning God's Authority. My name's Alsace, and today we're looking at Shin Kamen Rider. This is a film that's always stood out to me for being so drastically different from every other depiction of Kamen Rider, especially the ones from the Showa era. His suit is far more monstrous looking than any other Kamen Rider, to the point where he almost looks like a monster of the week. And I'm sure we've all stumbled upon his transformation sequence back in 2011 on YouTube when it was 360p. I remember seeing it as a kid and thinking about how painful and borderline disturbing it looked. Any quick Google image search of this film will tell you that this is not your average Kamen Rider. It seems far more dark and serious than anything else that's really come before it or after it. Shin Kamen Rider Prologue is a 1992 V-cinema directed by Osamu Tsuji. It follows Shin Kazamatsuri, a young boy volunteering as a sort of lab rat for his father's research team in hopes to find a cure for illnesses like AIDS or cancer. Geichi Onizuka is the man leading the research team, and he probably has to be my favorite character in the entire film, to be honest with you. You see, Shin Kamen Rider is a film that seeks to ask the question, can we challenge God? And inversely it asks, can we surpass God? This is brought up by Onizuka within the first 10 minutes of the film, and if you're like me, you probably think that sounds fucking ridiculous. I want to meet the 14-year-old who was lucky enough to write this script. But when you really analyze the question, you begin to realize that there's a lot more nuance to it that's worth exploring than just some middle schooler's god complex. The film is meant to be targeted at older Kamen Rider fans, as it's meant to be the series' 20th anniversary special. Even though it came out on the 21st anniversary, who cares, you fucking nerd? The film opens on this beautiful shot of a train running over a tunnel where a woman is silhouetted by the light coming from within it, depicting an almost angelic-like sequence. The contrast between the light within the tunnel and the outer world depicts exactly what kind of story this is trying to tell. And then it cuts to the sepia tone POV shot of the woman being stalked down by what is supposed to be Shin Kamen Rider, and it's actually super dope, as not only does the filter add such a dramatic tone to the footage being presented, but it, along with the general camera movement, does a phenomenal job at putting you in the perspective of Shin. Not to spoil too much, but Kazumatsuri, the young lab rat, is not necessarily Kamen Rider Shin at this point in the film. He's just able to telepathically see what Kamen Rider Shin is able to see. So the framing here works on almost a meta-narrative level, as we are seeing the world through Kamen Rider Shin's perspective, from the perspective of Shin Kazamatsuri, the lab rat. We, the audience, are passive viewers as we are witnessing the woman die from our own hands, much like how Shin Kazumatsuri, the lab rat, is also a voyeur in the killing spree that Kamen Rider Shin is about to go on. We then get this awfully 90s transition. Where we then get to see this montage of Shin killing a bunch of cops and stuff. It then cuts to actual Shin waking up from what is supposed to be believed as a dream, when in all reality, it wasn't. Which we find out later from a conveniently placed newspaper. We then see a bunch of mysterious dudes walking into a research hospital in order to observe the experiments taking place there. One of these dudes is actually played by the creator of Kamen Rider, Shotaro Ishinomori, aka the Dawn, the king himself, the young G. We then get that scene that I mentioned earlier about God, and we see Shin and his main squeeze, I, working out at what I'm guessing is their version of the juice bar, and the director uses this as an excuse to have a close-up on this chick's ass. No complaints, it's just an observation. We're then introduced to Shin's best friend Yuki, who is the least important character in the film. That might have been a bit hyperbolic, because at one point he does tell Ai that she should have sex with Shin because he's depressed, because that's all that women are good for. But past that, he doesn't do too much. I need to clarify that that's a joke, because I might get canceled for that. I can't just let that out there. I need to clarify, that was a joke, just so you know. Please don't take that seriously. I guess Yuki is also used as a vehicle for providing the audience with Shin's backstory in the beginning of the film, but really that's it. Shin looks at that newspaper that I mentioned again earlier, and he has this moment where he's depressed in his room after finding out that he might have killed a bunch of people as the Bugman, and I really do love this shot in particular. The small amount of space he takes up in the frame, along with him being slumped over the floor with nothing but a singular pot of coffee, really expresses those sort of feelings of helplessness. Also, this close-up in combination with that is really good too. The cinematography of the film is just so exceptional. I'm obsessed with it in that regard. Shin goes out for a run where he finds himself being attracted to these signals being sent out through Onizuka, which leads him to this abandoned warehouse, which is the place where most events occur in Tokusatsu, right behind the rock quarry. We find that Onizuka is also doing experiments on his own body, and the mise-en-scène of this shot is just downright confusing. We're led to believe that this is supposed to be like a scientific experiment, but there's like these demonic candles and the unholy Star of David just staring right in your face while all this is happening. Like, I really don't get it. Is it Hanukkah or something right now? We see both Shin and Onizuka tweaking the hell out, causing Shin to pass out, and the CIA barge in and attempt to shoot everything except for the main two characters. The sepia tone POV thing happens again, and people die, and Shin wakes up and there are a bunch of dead bodies just scattered around him. And once again, Shin takes up so little space within the frame here as he looks around at all of these dead bodies surrounding him, making for just another really powerful moment in the film. It cements that lack of control that he's feeling. It's just so good. The next day, Shin confronts Onizuka in his office, and Onizuka has a monologue where he explains how dope insects are, specifically because of their call and response mechanism, which allows them to communicate signals with one another without the need for being in the same place. You see where this is going. It explains how Shin is able to experience killing all of those people without ever actually realizing that he's doing it. Both him and Onizuka have been imposed with grasshopper DNA. And Onizuka also reveals that all of the research being done is overseen by the organization. And in the next scene, the lady from the CIA meets up with Shin in the warehouse, and she keeps talking about the organization, and neither of them ever really give it a name. We get this scene where Shin is just chilling with his bros. He explains to them how he's a murderer, even though it was just revealed to us that Onizuka was the one doing all the killing. I guess he didn't make it explicitly clear, but it's heavily implied that that's the case. But I guess Shin gets a pass. His feelings make sense. I understand why he doesn't want to chill with his friends right now, because he doesn't want to kill them. But he ends up having pool sex with Ai in the next scene, so I guess he gets over it pretty quickly. The organization ends up killing Onizuka for whatever reason. Again, nothing about them is ever really explained to us in full detail, but Shin is able to feel all of it because, you know, the grasshopper DNA, and this leads to Shin's first henshin sequence, and it is just as terrifying now as it was when I was a child. We literally see his heart begin to beat faster as he goes pale in the face, his eyes turn red, and he begins to tear out of his clothes. It's like something out of a werewolf movie. It's just horrifying. Unfortunately, the fight scene following this transformation isn't exactly amazing, to be honest, but it's not awful either, I guess. We also get this scene where Ai runs into Shin as a Kamen Rider, and she immediately knows that it's him without even having to say a word, which is interesting considering how insect telepathy was such a big part of Onizuka's plan in the film. This is such a beautiful scene as it highlights how humans can communicate with one another without the need for verbal expression. It's an interesting point to highlight, as the question of the film is, can we surpass the limits that God has presented us with? Yet, in this moment, Ai is able to surpass that exact same problem that Onizuka used as an example of our inabilities. Yet, she is able to surpass that without any sort of genetic augmentation. The CIA changes their plans to kill Shin rather than Onizuka because Onizuka is dead now. Shin's father states that he wants to leave the organization, but he's threatened to not do so. And in the third act of the film, Ai states that the organization seeks to take control of politics, ideology, culture, economy, science, and everything else governing society, which is such a broad and abstract grouping of different things that it sort of lends to this idea that the organization itself doesn't have a concrete plan past finding control wherever they see the ability to do so. This, along with its lack of a proper name, makes it feel like this unidentifiable, omnipotent force that has control over all aspects of reality. You kind of see where this is going, right? The main way in which the organization seeks funding is through creating cybernetic soldiers, and Kamen Rider Shin is just their most recent product of that. What separates Shin from past soldiers is that rather than adding robotic enhancements to the human body, Kamen Rider Shin is instead derived from the reconstruction of human DNA. After this, Aya is also kidnapped by the organization, and it's revealed to us that she is actually pregnant with Shin's baby, who is also more than likely a human grasshopper hybrid. And it's actually pretty dope because Shin is able to find her and the baby through the same call and response method that we talked about earlier between him and Onizuka. But for just a moment, can we talk about this shot of the fetus? It's disgusting, but more importantly, the image fades into this close-up of Shin, and I really like this little bit here as it reflects Shin's own rebirth, which takes place in his newfound perspective on life after realizing how he can use his power to take down the corrupt organization that gave it to him to begin with. The last section of the film sees Kamen Rider Shin transforming once again in order to save his father and his baby mama, but it's all for naught because the main guy at the head of the organization shoots Ai with a fucking machine gun, so it's more than safe to assume that she's probably dead. And in the end, we see the organization's headquarters blow up, which is a good thing. After that, the final scene of the film presents Shin romantically dragging his wife's dead body through the sewers, but I think it's also heavily implied that the baby is also still alive, so I guess it's a happy ending. Overall, Kamen Rider Shin is actually pretty good. It took me a while to really warm up to it, as my expectations were so high, considering so many people have called it the most mature and interesting Kamen Rider adaptation, and while I will say that the action sequences are far more sophisticated in terms of the amount of explosions and bloodshed, the main story of the film really is nothing incredibly out of the ordinary for Kamen Rider, to be honest. Besides the sex and nudity and stuff. The questioning of humanity's ability to challenge God really draws from a place of questioning whether or not our reality has purpose, and more importantly, do we really have control over said reality, or is that up to outside factors? The organization acting both as a challenge to God, as well as a metaphor of God, depicts this sort of sentiment almost perfectly. We ourselves make the attempt to grasp control over the lives of ourselves and those close to us in order to seek purpose, and this yearning for purpose is just the product of how unconstructed and unplanned our reality feels from the human perspective. And Shin using his power to question the organization, which in and of itself is his own sort of metaphorical creator, while he spent the entire first half of the film in this depressive state due to him feeling as though he lacks control over his own body, it just sort of exemplifies how this yearning leads to the questioning of God's authority in the grand scheme of our lives. And y'all thought that was just a joke. The unplanned pregnancy is just another example of how life throws these unplanned challenges our way. It's also far more accessible of a concept due to it being something that happens in our everyday lives. The film underscores all of these ideas in probably the most Kamen Rider way possible. The action of the film is used as a vehicle for the message being delivered. The nihilistic nature of the film is highlighted through the blood and gore being presented on the screen. It presents the loss of life in such a carefree manner that it forces one to believe that it lacks purpose, especially when the first person to die on screen is actually dying at the hands of the viewer. The director is setting you up for this mindset within the first 3 minutes of the film through this first person perspective. And while there are a few things I would have liked to have seen more of in the film, such as Shin's sort of little support group here, it's safe to say that the film's not only a really good Kamen Rider film, but also a really solid movie overall. It's incredibly enjoyable if you're interested in action and explosions and shit, but it also presents an amazing story around that combat that not only questions what it means to be human, as well as God, but what it means to be a hero, as Shin's ultimate realization doesn't come from using his powers for his own nefarious purposes, but instead to save the people in his life who he's closest to. Hey, it's been a minute since I've been around. How have you been? I hope all is well. I was initially gonna end the video doing like a sort of, you remember back in the day when we used to do like everything I just said, or like a summary of everything I just said, set to classical music, and it used to be like kind of funny because back then we were talking about like Scooby-Doo and SpongeBob, And it was like I would recap a 5 to 10 minute video in like 2 seconds, and the joke was that it was a long video that could really be summed up in about 3 sentences, basically the length of a tweet. And I was just drawing it out for watch time, and I was gonna do that for this video, but then instead of talking about like, you know, Shaggy Doo turning into like Goku, I ended up talking about like nihilism, and it was a bit too much. I realized, especially since I'm kind of making a return, maybe I shouldn't be talking about like depression and stuff like that. So instead I decided I'll do like an unscripted sort of vloggy style thing. I'm on my Estee vibes right now, sitting on the floor right now with my Blue Yeti. And yeah, we're just chilling. We're just talking. It's been a minute since I've been on camera for one, and it's also been a minute since I've just posted a video in general, to be honest. I know people have asked where I've been, and I've been at my house. Yeah, that's about as far as we need to go with that. I really like Kamen Rider Shin. I kind of am frustrated in that a lot of fandoms, especially the Tokusatsu fandom, we have this tendency to think that like something being dark and gritty and mature is like indicative of quality, and I really don't like that way of thinking. And now I understand that that's not like exclusive to the Tokusatsu community, and I especially understand that like I'm not the first person to really comment on that, so I'm not really saying anything new here. But when it comes to Shin, I will say that it is good. There's nothing wrong with it. I just don't think that a lot of people are really looking at it from the right perspective, really, because there's so much in that film. There's so much thoughtful filmmaking being put into it that it frustrates me that all kind of gets like sidelined for like the fact that Shin decks a civilian woman on camera, and there's like blood everywhere, and everyone's like, whoa. Not that there's anything wrong with that. That was cool. It was dope. It was awesome to see. But it's frustrating because there's so much other good stuff around that moment that it's like, why can't we just notice that stuff too? I don't know. Also, the part of the reason why this is unscripted and I'm not doing like the big long essay at the end is because I realized that I already sounded super pretentious earlier. So I figured having another essay attached to that essay about nihilism was not a good look and would probably make me seem like a liberal arts major. And that's not a good thing to be, even though I am. It's not fun to have to accept that reality while putting out content. It's not great. It's such a good movie. It really is. I'm in love with it. I haven't stopped thinking about it. What's weird about it though is that a lot of the time for me, what I love about Tokusatsu really is like the characters, and like their arcs and like getting attached to them. I don't really think that I'm gonna think about these characters ever again in like a month from now. When it comes to Toku, my bread and butter is like really falling in love with the characters. I talked about that in my Kaku Ranger video, and I don't know. I feel like you just get attached to them, especially considering the fact that you're following them and getting to know them throughout the course of like a year. So that kind of helps in terms of like the time being spent with them. So maybe it isn't so much the fact that like the characters in the film was bad, but more so the fact that you didn't get to spend as much time with them. And that's kind of frustrating because there were so many interesting characters that I wanted to get to know more about. I kind of touched on this earlier, but like there was like this whole scene at like the pool where they were just chilling, and like I just wanted to know those guys. I wanted to spend time with them. I feel like the film didn't get a lot of time to really breathe, But the thing is, I feel like it spent all of its time really well at the same time. I just kind of, I say this with almost every movie I watch. I want an extra 30 minutes added to like everything ever. I feel like for most people, our knowledge sort of spans really like Neo Heisei, like double to like modern era Kamen Rider. And I feel like the Showa era doesn't get like enough love, really. Especially for myself. I haven't seen any series from the Showa era, really. I don't think. I've seen episodes of the original Kamen Rider, because, you know, they're on like Pluto TV and like Shout Factory and stuff like that. I really need to get more into like early Heisei and like Showa era stuff. So I think what's gonna happen on the channel is I might start doing some more Kamen Rider film reviews, because that's an easy way to start checking off some like Toku like nerd boxes. So expect some more Kamen Rider film reviews, because there's a lot of standalone Kamen Rider films. I was super surprised by that while I was researching this video. I always thought like Zoe and Jay were like full-on series. I always knew Shin was a movie. I don't know why I knew Shin was a movie, but I always knew Shin was a movie. I think it was because it's just like the most interesting one, so I probably just ended up researching it as a kid because Shin is just so cool. But like for some reason, I always thought Jay and Zoe were like actual series with like 50 something episodes, and now that I realize that they're just movies, it makes it far more manageable of a task to finish them. Just to give you like a frame of reference, I released the Cocker Ranger video back in like, I want to say February, March, or April, somewhere around there. Somewhere around there. I don't remember. And I started watching Kuga in, I want to say about right after I posted the Cocker Ranger videos, when I started Kuga. So let's say like April. It's now October and I'm like only 20 episodes in, and I just spat everywhere, and I hope you don't rewind to look at that again. It takes me forever to watch something, so to know that they're movies makes it far more manageable. I just can't binge watch things. I'm really bad at that. I don't know why. I feel like my body doesn't allow me to like sit down and like just like veg for more than like an hour or two. And I also don't have a lot of time to do that within the day to begin with. I don't know, I just always end up feeling guilty, you know? Like I'm wasting time, even though I may not be wasting time, because like chilling by yourself is like, that's time well spent, you know? It's good for your mental health. Or at least that's what I try to tell myself to make me feel better about it. Speaking of mental health, I hope you're doing well. We're still in quarantine. And I hope you're wearing a mask. If not, I guess I could say that's your choice. And I can't really change your opinion. I know nothing I can say now will change your opinion if you're not wearing a mask. But I personally would say wear a mask. But if you don't want to do that, I know that there's nothing I can say to change your mind, and that's okay. I just want to let you know I don't agree with your actions, and that's perfectly fine and valid. I hope all is well. I can't really push that in enough. I just got 1,000 subscribers. I was gonna make a whole video dedicated to that, and then I decided against it because I felt like it was just too self-glorifying. Especially considering that I haven't uploaded in a while. It just sounds like, I just feel like that's kind of not cool. But I guess I'll say something about it. I don't know. I might cry. I don't want to cry. I'm not going to cry on camera. Nope. It means a lot to me. I feel like anything that I can say right now sounds like stuff that some other YouTuber said somewhere else, and that's maybe a bit, I don't know, I don't want to come off like I'm just repeating the same stuff that everyone else throws at you. I don't want to I'm afraid of coming off as disingenuous when I say this. I really didn't think I could do it. And I know that 1,000 subscribers seems like very manageable of a thing to accomplish. And I know that, everyone has 1,000 subscribers. It's not a huge accomplishment, it's not like a million, obviously. Although I want my bronze play button. But no, seriously, I didn't think I could do it. I really didn't. And I don't want to sound like that's like a self-pity type thing. It more so just kind of came from a place where I was like, you know what? I have my small group of people who watch my videos. And they get anywhere from this many views to this many views, and that's fine. And that's cool. So I don't want to sound like I was like, it was like a self-pity type thing, but it was more so the fact that I was just like, I'm good here, Because in all reality, I didn't do shit. I didn't do anything. I just did what I was gonna do regardless. You're the one who, or maybe you're not, but the other motherfuckers are the ones who hit the subscribe button. So that's on you, Just thanks. I didn't think I could do it. I know it's not an outrageously huge number. I know people who are into clout culture probably think I'm goofy for being happy about this. It means a lot. And I know I'm tearing up. Not saying that my self-worth is coming from here, because that's not healthy. It's not healthy to think about like that at all. But it was just cool. Because it felt like 2 years. It was just 2 years of like this, and it's like, there are people that care. And it's dope. It really is. It means a lot. So thanks. Thank you so much for coming around as often as you do. However often that is more than appreciated. And I hope to keep doing whatever it is that you came for. And I hope that your time here, however long it is you spend here, is pleasant. Yeah. Thanks for having that happen for me. It's really dope. Thanks for watching this video. Thanks for listening to me ramble all the way through. That's really awesome too. And it means a lot. That was my I have a air freshener that goes off by itself. That was that, if you heard that. And just thanks for being here. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you, and I hope to see you soon. Bye bye.